Hello PHS, welcome back for another one of our best strategies videos. We're with Mr. Jeffrey Fox, the amazing Mr. Fox today. And what you guys said that you wanted to hear from him is about how Mr. Fox structures his classroom and how he uses Canvas within that structure. So just wanted to take a few minutes today and talk to you. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Of course.
Excited to hear what you have to say about structured classroom. Mr. Fox, can you tell me a little bit about some of the things that you do to create structure in your classroom?
So the most important thing is to understand that structure helps everybody. It makes my life less terrible, it makes the kids' lives less terrible. And so what I do is I start by figuring out what the most important things are. What do the kids absolutely need to be able to do when they leave my classroom? And then I figure out a way to work those in as many assignments, as many days, as many weeks as possible. And so, for example, my kids need to be able to read. They have to be able to tell me where important information is in the reading, and they have to be able to tell me where they pulled that from. So every time we go through and we read a new piece, they have a study guide. And when they do the study guide, they have to give me embedded text information, and they have to give me a citation with it. It's something they'll have to do when they move on to college, something they'll have to move on and do next year. And so when we start a new piece, the kids know we're going to read this piece, there's going to be a study guide. And then after we do a study guide, we're going to write on it so I can make sure they actually understand the piece that we're reading. And then after that, they're going to take a test. The test is going to be open book. They can use a dictionary, and then we're going to move on to the next piece. So it's exactly the same format every time we go through and do that, and the kids find that reassuring. And what's been really nice for me is that Miss Wesley and Miss Stevens have adopted essentially the same format. And so the kids get used to that. They're familiar with that. And so when they move from Miss Wesley to Miss Stevens or Miss Stevens to myself, then they're already in that mode of thinking. It's one less thing they have to get used to, one less thing they have to panic about, and it's comforting to them. Awesome. We do the vocabulary the same way. It runs a 2-week cycle. We give the kids a crossword to expose them to the words. Then they do practice with the words. Then we grade it in class so they can ask questions. And then we take a test. Awesome. And then we repeat it again. And so the structure makes it comfortable for the students so that they can focus their thinking power on the knowledge and skills as opposed to what are we doing today? How is this going to work? What do you mean by this assignment? I don't get it.
Awesome. So what are some of the ways that you integrate Canvas into that, knowing that every day you're going to have changes and you're going to have things that are obstacles to your structure? What are some ways that you use Canvas to kind of nail down that structure, or ways that you use Canvas to your advantage to help sustain that structure in the face of inevitable chaos?
So the two big things that we do, one is almost all of our assignments, at least all those that can be turned in electronically, are. Due date is always 11 p.m. So no matter what day it's due, no matter what the assignment is, if it's writing, if it's a study guide, if it's an essay, it's 11 p.m. That again runs from Miss Wesley down in freshman year all the way up through me. And so you've always got that consistency. It's always going to be run through a plagiarism checker, which again helps with the consistency.
Awesome.
Then on top of that, I like to go through and put all kinds of resources in Canvas, whether those are study materials or videos or whatever it may be that's going to help the kids. But I particularly like to be able to go through when there's writing and put in samples.
Okay.
And so we have student samples from prior years, examples that are good, that are strong, so the kids can look at it, and that helps the kids because they can look at the sample, know what they need to do, even if they're not sure about something. And so the kids who ask questions are the ones who really legitimately need my help as opposed to just me repeating directions. And so that allows me to focus my time much more efficiently on those kids who really need that help. And so when we're gone unexpectedly for a snow day, when there's an assembly or whatever it may be, all those resources are still available. So when I have a kid out for a week for an ag show, it's not a big deal because they can go through and look at that material.
Awesome. Very, very good. So what are some unique ways that you like to use Canvas that you mentioned a couple of them, but is there anything that's just something that you've learned maybe in the last couple of years that you just thought was an amazingly unique way to use Canvas that you'd not thought of before?
And not particularly in terms of uniqueness, because again, everything that I do is something that Miss Wesley and Miss Stevens also is going to do. So the kids have seen really everything before they get to me. One thing that we have done is there are online text analyzers that we like to use. And so there are links and directions and step-by-step guidelines for the students in Canvas. And so it allows them to use other online tools fairly seamlessly because literally you go into Canvas, you click off the link, and you go and you edit your paper in one of these ways. And so the kids really like that and find that reassuring, again, because they get used to it.
Yeah.
The first piece in my class, we don't do it because we're stair-stepping them in.
Right.
But once we get to the second writing piece, from then until literally the end of the year, any writing piece the students do have to be put through these text analyzers and revised. And so that's been very beneficial, just having Canvas to help springboard off for the students. In fact, we've had a number of students who have graduated who will email me or text me after they've graduated. Hey, Mr. Fox, what are those editors? What are those things?
Right.
You know, what was that website you sent us to from Canvas to learn MLA or APA or Chicago style? And so being able to use Canvas to help springboard to other resources is probably
Awesome.
my favorite thing.
Very
That
good.
and the plagiarism checker.
Awesome. That is very helpful. Okay, so we're all very good at structure for about the first 6 to 8 days of any given semester. I know that I am very good at structure for 6 to 8 days of any given semester. And then something changes. Either something happens with the kids or something happens work-wise and it becomes more difficult to sustain. So can you give me 2 to 3 kind of basic, simple things that anybody, kind of regardless of subject matter, could do to help create some structure in their classroom that are kind of easy to hold on to, that can sustain even when it becomes a little extra work
Sure.
and it's more difficult?
So the easiest thing that I would say to do is get with your department and find something that you all do. So it's got to be just something simple. You don't want to start big because that's when you start to run into problems. But for example, in math, if all of you decided, hey, we're going to sit down and we're going to present our tests in the exact same format, the test will look the same no matter whose math class you're in.
Right.
Or if we're all going to go through and upload the videos from Khan Academy for every single unit, that would be helpful. In science, it might be, I don't know, lab reports. Okay, so say everybody's going to use a common format for lab reports. Now that common format may be added to from freshman year to sophomore year to junior year, that kind of thing. But just the kids being able to see something that's the same is going to help them.
Right.
And so something like that is probably good because you've got, I'm not necessarily say peer pressure, but that's really what it is. Well, I kind of have to stick with this because all the other teachers are doing it. I don't want to be the one to fall down on the job. So that would be my first big suggestion. My second suggestion is you got to be flexible. Don't panic when things come up, when things don't work out. This week we have a short day on Friday, and so that means that we can't take our vocabulary test like normal on Friday. We got to take it Thursday, which means we have to grade a day early. And so the kids have to get their stuff done a day early. You tell the kids, and for some of them, there's 10 or 15 seconds of panic. And then they realize, oh, wait, this is not a big deal. The structure is really not that different.
Right.
And so even minor changes to the structure, you still have that comfort component.
Awesome.
And that will probably be the most helpful thing. And the last thing I got to say is don't push it. You know, the structure is there, little parts, little things. We started the vocabulary program, I don't know, probably 12 years ago. It's changed a little bit since then, but we've been doing it for 12 years.
Right.
Now, going through and doing the study guides, that's probably, I don't know, 8 or 10 years old. And so we're talking about adding little pieces of structure along the way that then really help not just in your class, but if you can extend them outside of your class, it's added benefit. So you don't necessarily think about, I have to structure everything this year and that's how it's going to be.
Right.
You pick 1 or 2 things, structure them, and then just incorporate another 1 or 2 things, change what you need to in the first 1 or 2 things, and then move forward.
Awesome. Well, Mr. Fox, thank you so much today for your input. We all really admire the way that that your class runs so smoothly, and kids really do have an expectation of what's going to happen in your classes. And I think that extends throughout the English department. And so thank you for sharing that with us. And hopefully that's something that we can all kind of put to use in our classrooms. And you heard it right here from Mr. Fox. Make your life less terrible by using structure in your classroom. So thank you so much, Mr. Fox. You have a fantastic
You're
day.
welcome. You too.